Hello and welcome to this organization and productivity workshop where you will learn how to plan your life in systems and achieve anything you set your mind to. In case you don't know me, my name is Sophie and I've spent the last decade studying international relations. And once I noticed that academia was something I really enjoyed and wanted to spend some of my career on, I set myself three ambitious goals. I wanted to go to Oxford, I wanted to get a prestigious scholarship, and I wanted to get a PhD. 10 years later, I've achieved all three of these things, and I've learned so many valuable lessons along the way about organization and productivity that I want to share with you today so that you can turn your dreams into your reality. So, let's get started. The way we will go about this is in three parts. First of all, we will review some key concepts and techniques that I think are fundamentals for anyone who wants to improve their productivity and organization. Then we will learn how to build a system based on my own experience of engineering routines that allow you to focus on what matters and stop thinking again and again about how you are going to do it. And finally, we will review some of my favorite life-changing digital tools, which I believe have been cornerstones of my success. So let's start with systems. Why am I going to talk about how to plan your life in systems? Well, systems are everywhere around us. They can be natural or man-made, and they can be very simple or very complex. Basically, systems is a concept that is malleable enough that you can use it in your everyday life and you can make it as complicated as you wish so that it fits your needs. So in this workshop, we will create systems that interconnect habits, tools, and processes that allow to streamline your productivity. Perhaps you can already think of certain systems that you use already for your productivity. For example, perhaps you have a morning routine that allow you to get started fresh, full of energy, or maybe you have a nighttime routine that allows you to have a good night of sleep, fully rested. And perhaps you have other types of systems. Perhaps you have a monthly system that allows you to stay on track and review your goals. Maybe you can think of another kind of system you already use and keep that in mind because we will get back to it later. So the main question when we think about organization and productivity is how can I improve my performance, right? There are many ways of going about this, of course, and the way that I will go about this is through three key concepts that I will explain right now. The first one, which is sort of the fundamental foundation, the really strong basis that you can go back to every time you have a question or a doubt, is the growth mindset. So the growth mindset is a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck, and basically her argument is that people have two kinds of mindset. You can either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. When you have a fixed mindset, you think that intelligence is static. You are either capable or you're not. You either are a person who can achieve this or you cannot. And once you have this fixed type of mindset, usually you try to avoid challenges because you think you cannot surpass them. Usually you give up easily in the face of obstacles and you see effort as fruitless or making your time worse. You see difficulties as things that you try to avoid. And usually you have a hard time receiving criticism and finding it useful. And last but not least, this is something that I think most of us struggle with. When you have a fixed mindset, you feel threatened by the success of others. Maybe you feel a certain type of envy or jealousy or just find it extremely cringe. And as a result of all these habits that you have when you think about success or challenges, you may plateau and really hit a wall really fast in your growth, in your personal growth, in your professional growth, because you have a very deterministic view of the world. Things either are or they aren't. Now, in opposition, in contrast to this fixed mindset, there is a possibility of having a growth mindset, which is what Carol Dweck advocates for. So in a growth mindset, you think that intelligence can be developed. It's not either or. It's not either you are intelligent or you aren't. You are capable of doing that or you aren't. No, no, no. You can always grow and learn. So that's the growth mindset. And once you tap into that mindset, instead of fearing challenges and obstacles, you start embracing them, seeing them as the valuable lessons, as the valuable stepping stones that will lead you to success and happiness. You see effort as the path to mastery. And most of all, you learn from criticism. You see it as a very valuable input for you to improve yourself and your work. And finally, you find lesson and inspiration in the success of others. As a result of adopting all these sorts of psychological habits, you will reach ever higher levels of achievement, and this will give you a greater sense of free will. Now that you've understood the growth mindset, we can go into the next layer of the key concepts that I think are fundamentals for organization and productivity. So this second concept is the concept of SMART goals. SMART goals was a concept developed for agencies and corporations to have key performance indicators that make sense for their growth, whether that's, economic growth or professional growth. And basically what the SMART goals stand for is that you want to be specific about your goals. You want your goals to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So what does that mean is that sometimes we tend to think of dreams that we have, objectives that we have in very vague terms. And what this is about is that I want you to think of your goals in the most specific way that you can. I want you to really unpack them and think, okay, what exactly am I thinking about here? What exactly am I talking about? So for example, let's say that one of my goals for the longest time was I want to be really good at yoga. Okay, where do I start? That's such a vague goal. So instead, I'm going to be very specific about that goal. I want to be really good at yoga. What does it mean for me? It's going to mean that I want to be able to do a dancer pose and hold it perhaps for 1 minute. So that makes it specific and measurable. Attainable, well, I'm going to say I want to be able to do it by the end of next year because I think that I can really do that. Relevant, well, it's very relevant for the goal of being good at yoga because it's a very difficult pose. And time-bound with, yes, I set a fixed date by which I want to achieve it. And I said as well, I want to hold it for 1.5 minutes. So you see, from I want to be good at yoga to I want to be able to hold this pose for 1 minute, that's much more specific. And thus that will make me much more likely to attain that goal. But anyways, if I want you to remember just one lesson for the concept of SMART goals is that you should be specific about your goals and write them down. You are so much more likely to achieve your goals once you write them down. So the bottom line here is think about your goals in specific ways and write them down. Another key component here is attainable. Well, I see a lot of people trying to be really ambitious, especially with the manifestation movement. We try to set goals that are really, really, really high out there, And I do want you to be ambitious and think of yourself as capable of achieving anything. But I also want you to be realistic. And the reason is the following. If you write down goals that you are very unlikely to achieve, you will demotivate yourself little by little. In comparison, if you write down goals that you are capable of achieving, goals that are perhaps a little bit easy for you at the beginning, you will take them and that will give you motivation to keep going. So that's kind of the trick there, to find a good balance between being realistic and ambitious. I want you to find a sweet middle spot here, that you challenge yourself, but not too much because otherwise you risk demotivating yourself. Don't forget the amazing serotonin boost that it gives you once you tick something off your to-do list, right? You want to have that little boost every single day. You want to fix yourself goals that you can achieve and attain. Now, the third concept that is really fundamental here is time blocking. So for me, this has always been something very, very intuitive, but I've realized with years that it's not for everybody. So that's why I wanted to mention it here. Time blocking is the idea that you want to block time in your calendar, in your schedule for your priorities. So here is an example of my calendar and what a typical week looks like. So as you will see, I try to have time blocked for my priorities, and I try to have maximum 2 big priorities per day. And of course, with years, I've learned how much it takes me to do certain things. So I know how much time to plan for each of these tasks that I have to achieve. And basically, I want you to go through the same learning process of scheduling time for something and seeing, okay, do I actually need more? Do I actually need less? And in case of doubt, of course, always plan more. If you don't know how long a task is going to take you, just plan it for the whole day. And time blocking is, of course, extremely important because I don't know how to explain it. Like for me, if it's not in my calendar, it's just not happening. My calendar is the extension of my brain. Every time I schedule something, whether it's with a friend and it's like something about my personal life, I put it immediately in my calendar. Or if it's something that I really want to achieve by the end of the month, I will put it immediately in my calendar. And so as you see, I plan a lot of things that are for work, but I also plan some things that are for my personal life. And this is how I use color codes. Each color corresponds to an activity that I have. For example, I used to divide it between university, personal life, workouts, health, and then entrepreneurship or like side hustles, side business. And this you can use as well, and of course, tailor it to your own needs. This helps me to have a very quick overview at my calendar and what I have to do and how long things are going to take me. And it just helps me be more organized. So time blocking is extremely important and extremely useful, and it will teach you as well about yourself and how long you take for certain tasks. It will really, you will really learn so much about yourself while doing time blocking. And if there are certain things that you know you have to do every single week and you just don't want to leave it out of your calendar, put it as a recurring event. For example, as you can see, on Tuesdays, I took 1 hour for my emails because, yes, I have to go through my mailbox at least once a week, and I don't want to have, reach the end of the week and be like, oh crap, I didn't do any of my email readings. So this is how I get things done, basically. Now that I've gone through these 3 concepts, major concepts of the growth mindset, the SMART goals, and the time blocking, these are the 3 main lessons that I want you to take away about how to improve your performance, how to be more organized, how to be more productive. Number 1, adopt a growth mindset. See lessons as the pathway to success. There is nothing wrong about making mistakes. It's by making mistakes that you are going to get there. Don't be afraid, go for it. Number 2, schedule your priorities. Things that matter have to be in your calendar. And lastly, write down your goals. If you want to achieve something, if you want something to become your reality, you have to write it down. You have to be specific about it. Okay? Let's go to the second part of this workshop, which is about systems. So the little scientist in me wanted to have a definition for this part. A system is a structured set of interconnected components that interact and function together as a coherent whole to achieve specific purposes or maintain certain conditions. So as I was saying in the introduction, there are many types of systems. It can be a natural system, it can be a political organization is a type of system. But here in this workshop, we're talking about systems as routines, as self-sustaining orders and self-sustaining structures that make your life easier and more organized so that you can focus on enhancing your performance. Because the amount of time, for example, the amount of time you are going to spend thinking about, oh, what should I cook for lunch today? If you don't plan your lunch. Let's say that, imagine you plan your lunch for the whole week. You don't have to think about that. And all the time that you save, instead of thinking about what you have to cook, you can focus on resting or doing something that is really important. So this is what systems really are about. It's about engineering your life in a way that you stop thinking about the same things over and over again. So you reduce this decision fatigue of having to think over and over again, what do I have to do today? What do I have to do this week? What was my goal again? How am I going to go about that? Once you think about it once and for all, you don't have to think about it ever again, and you can focus on just doing the thing. This really helps you create sustainable habits in your life and slowly, little by little, transform your goals into your reality. So I want you to think of systems as having 6 characteristics. First ones are the components, the individual elements that create that system, right? In the case of a productivity system, the elements are going to be actions or habits that you want to perform, for example, as part of a morning routine. Let's say I want to brush my teeth, I want to take a shower, I want to do yoga for 30 minutes, and I want to have a coffee. Interconnections are the way those elements or those habits are connected. One comes after the other, and they are obviously related in a way that makes sense. They are little steps in your system. I would much rather have my shower after I've done yoga than before, for example. Then your system is going to have some boundaries. So that's going to be what is inside your system versus what's outside of it. For example, if you are building a daily routine, you want to make sure that you have it very clear what is inside that daily routine. What is it that you want to do every single day versus what is it that you want to do perhaps on a weekly basis. And that will be a different routine. So I want you to think about that first. I want you to think of what's inside and what's not. Fourth, I want you to think of the purpose, the function of your system. What is really the outcome? What is the intended goal? So, for example, the objective of my morning routine is to start the day really fresh, motivated, with a good, positive mindset. And of course, every system has inputs and outputs. You can think of the input as the trigger. For example, in my morning routine, the trigger is the alarm. And I want that to be the trigger for me to start my habits immediately and not start doom scrolling on social media. You see, so you want to think about what is going to trigger your little system and what is it going to be leading to, what is the outcome. So for me, my morning routine starts with my alarm ringing and ends when I have my breakfast, and then I start working and I feel really good. And last but not least, systems all have feedback loops. So this is how you make sure that the system works. And this is perhaps the most important part, is that you're going to review regularly the performance of your system. Is it working for you? Is it leading to the objective that you had in mind? Is it getting better or is it getting worse? And that's okay. If you realize that the system is completely wrong, that's all right. It's part of the process. But it's really important that you have this review moment of, thinking, okay, let's sit and evaluate, how did this go? What do I have to change here? Instead of being like, oh no, crap, I see that this didn't work at all. Bye. This is the moment that is the most difficult, is to be like, okay, this didn't work at all. What is it that went wrong? How can I change it? How can I improve it so that my system becomes better at being self-sustaining? Okay. Now that we've reviewed the key characteristics of a system, we're going to build one ourselves. And I want you to think of systems as the routines of your life, right? And for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to build a morning routine, but you can think of any other system that works for you. I have systems for my morning routines, for my weekly and monthly checkups, and also for my yearly planning. So this is really how I have engineered my life in a way that everything is really organized and productive, is that I have these moments every single day, or I mean, to be honest, some days it doesn't happen, and that's fine. It just happens most days. And then the same for most weeks. I have a review system on a weekly basis and at the beginning of each month. At the beginning of each month, I sit down and I review my goal, and then the same goes for the beginning of each year. But here, for the purpose of this exercise, we will build a system that is a morning routine. And you might think that this is really simple and silly, but actually there is so much power into building a solid morning routine. Why? Because you're going to do it every single day. And what you do every single day has so much influence on who you become. So if you feel overwhelmed and you don't know where to start about changing your life and what your life looks like, start by changing your morning routine. Here we go. The first thing I want you to do is to list the main elements of your system, the components. What are the things that you want to achieve in your morning routine? Like, how do you want it to look like? For example, for me, I want to have breakfast. That's really important. I want to do yoga. Maybe I would like to read a little bit. And of course, there are things that I need to do, like shower. And yeah, perhaps those are the most important things. So these are the elements. Now, I want you to do the same thing for the routine that you are building for yourself and think about the elements that you want to be part of your morning routine. Then we are going to relate those elements. So I want you to think, in which order does it make sense that those elements happen in your morning routine? So for example, well, first I'm going to wake up and I want to immediately avoid scrolling on social media. I want to immediately do yoga. So perhaps I will do that first. Then I will have to take a shower because maybe I broke a little bit of a sweat. And then after I will feel really hungry. And usually when I eat, I like to read a little bit. So maybe that's when I can read a book. And then I can go through my emails. And then I will be fully ready to get started with my most important tasks of my day. So I want you to do the same thing and think about how your habits are going to happen in your morning routine. Think about the order that makes the most sense. And when I was doing this workshop with some colleagues earlier this month, sometimes they would say, like, I don't know what should go in. I don't know if I will do it every morning. And this is where, the SMART goal concept comes in. You have to do something that is realistic. If I set myself the goal of doing 1 hour and a half of yoga every single day, I know it's not going to happen, and I know I'm going to be very disappointed in myself. So if I set the goal of doing more yoga every morning, I'm going to do it in a very realistic way, and I'm going to say, I'm going to start by 20 minutes. And once I've done 20 minutes, maybe I'll do 30 minutes every day. Something that you can do, something that is really realistic for you. So think in these terms. Whenever you have a doubt, go back through the growth mindset, the SMART goals, and the time blocking. Once you have related your elements of your routine, think about the trigger. When does it start? And like I said, I want mine to start immediately as my alarm rings, because the purpose of my morning routine is to start with a good mindset, positivity, and that's the opposite of being on social media in the morning. And then you want to think of the desired goal or outcome. For me, it's to start the day at my desk, starting my most important priorities. And finally, you want to have a review mechanism, a feedback loop, to make sure that your system works. So for me, at the end of each week, I will look at my calendar and see, okay, what happened? What did not happen? What did I achieve? What did I not achieve? And I will go through my calendar and see all the things that I didn't do, go through my to-do list and see the things that I didn't do, and adapt my routines accordingly. So this completes the formation of a system. I hope that you go through the exercise yourself and try to build your morning routine or your weekly routine or the things that you want to do each month to make you feel more productive and organized. Now, digital tools. This is the how-to, more practical part of the workshop and the last one, which is about digital tools. So I'm sure you've all have a phone, a tablet, a computer on which you use certain tools like a digital calendar, an appointment setting app, a payment apps if you have a business. And they're literally, an infinity of apps that I could recommend to boost your organization and productivity, but I will focus on 3 that I think are the most, or at least in my experience, have been for me the most helpful. And they can take form in many different ways. If you're interested in finding all my tips on organization and productivity, scan this QR code and it will take you to my blog where I share all my tips in details and all my favorite apps. So here are 3 of them. First, a calendar. As I said, fundamental. And this calendar can be, your built-in calendar on your laptop, on your phone. It doesn't really matter. What I would say, what matters the most is that you use it and that you use it well. So like I said, try to find out how long things take you and try to synchronize your calendar across all your devices so that you have it wherever you are, you have it at your hands. Invite collaborators or clients to the events that you are planning. Set up default reminders. For example, I set up a default reminder 30 minutes before any event starts so that I'm sure I do not miss it. And even if I'm in bed, running late, I get a notification about something that's starting and I immediately get up. And last but not least, organize recurring events that you know are happening every single week or every single month. For example, I organize a recurring event for what I call my success planning at the beginning of each month. I want this to happen and I don't want to forget about it, so I set it up as a recurring monthly event. The second digital tool that I wanted to talk about is Notability. So Notability is a digital note-taking app, which is kind of like a digital notepad on which you can do handwriting, drawing, annotate documents, anything you want. And it's extremely useful if you have a tablet like I do. I use it to plan my monthly goals. So typically what I will do at the beginning of each month, I will create a new sheet like this with the different activities that I have. For example, research, my blog, wellness, my role at my faculty, and job applications. And I will just list the most important things that I want to achieve. And at the beginning of each month, I write this down, and then I also review what I did the previous month and what is left over. And that helps me a lot keep track of my activities, my goals, and the important events that are happening. I highly recommend it if you are using a tablet. It's honestly life-changing. I also use it to annotate documents that I'm reading and just to take notes. So whenever I have like a monthly goals file, then I also use it to take notes wherever I have to take note that month. And then I keep everything as like a monthly file. And I have like this for most months. Some month it doesn't happen. Again, honestly, you have to be also honest with yourself that it's not always everything perfect. But some months it looks very complete like this one. And the last digital tool that I wanted to talk about is Notion. Notion has been introduced by my dear friend Marie and has literally changed my life. It's a very complete note-taking, collaboration, organization, database app all in one that you can use on your laptop, your tablet, your mobile, anything you want. And the way I've used Notion is that I've built a dashboard that is my life dashboard on which everything is organized. It's basically an extension of my brain. Everything that I love, everything that I care about, everything that I do, everything is in there. It's honestly amazing. So this is what my life dashboard looks like. You have my daily, I have a quote there that inspires me by Carol Dweck about the growth mindset. And then I have my daily board with my tasks that I don't want to forget about, my monthly goals that I will typically write down in my note-taking handwriting app. So for example, for each month, I can develop. I have my vision board here firsthand so that I can keep track of it. And then I have all my projects that are developed there more in detail. So my personal projects, academia, my entrepreneurship, and then also certain, so these are the projects, and then also some more personal, sort of like gratitude journal, things that bring me joy and memories that I want to keep track of. So this is how I use Notion. I use it as the organizer of my life, and it also has some AI features, which is very useful, kind of like ChatGPT. It allows you to write tasks, but also to automate certain tasks, which is very practical to streamline your productivity. So Notion is really life-changing, but I know it can also be a little bit overwhelming because you start with a blank canvas and you have to build everything on your own, which is why I have created a template dashboard that you can purchase on Etsy for less than 10 euros. You can have the template that I use every single day already filled in that you just have to personalize with your own activities, your own projects, and your own goals. So if you're interested, scan this QR code and it will take you directly to the selling page. So that concludes this workshop. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. I hope that this has helped you. I hope that this has given you some useful advice. If you have any questions, and I hope you do, please write it down in the comments or feel free to contact me at any of the contact points you see on the screen, whether it's by email or through social media. Feel free to ask me any question you have. I would be so glad to answer it. And if you're interested, I also offer some coaching services, and I would be so glad to guide you to achieve anything you set your mind to. Thank you so much.